The gift for a 5-year anniversary is wood. So, Rob, will you please give me wood? This is Corey, and this is the O The Anthem podcast.
Thank God there's somebody between us. Welcome, everybody, to episode 260 of the O The Anthem podcast, coming to you from the hashtag OTA LA studios. Hi, by the 1T freeway down Los Angeles. Thank you. I showed Roberto a video a little bit earlier about Trump. Have you seen the video of Trump having a stroke while he's giving a speech?
No, when was this?
Oh, it was literally today. He was like, "Oh yeah, there's actually Terry Carmer. Yeah, he's known for and like nobody reacts to it. Just everybody's like, "Oh, this is normal.
Yeah,
They're having a
like
stroke."
clapping
right on
and
camera.
like,
He's like, does anybody else smell toast?
Yeah.
Anyway, hi about the 110 freeway in downtown Los Angeles, California. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for subscribing on your podcatcher of choice, whether that be Apple or Google or Spotify or Pocket Cast or Stitcher or any of those things. All of them are appreciated by us. Please rate if you can at said place.
And of course, you can find more O The Anthem at O The Anthem on Twitter and Instagram. You can check out. Right now, you're watching us on Facebook.com/O The Anthem, where you can find all of the old videos and the live streams. You can find more videos at YouTube.com/O The Anthem, and of course, everything from us at OTheAnthem.com.
You're a
Indeed.
little off today.
I am. It's 12:17, and I'm a little tired.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I have work tomorrow. It's gonna be a bit of a problem.
Speaking of work, this is just real quick before we get into the business of celebrating the 5-year anniversary. Mm-hmm. This is going to be the longest fucking week of my entire life.
You're having a bit of one.
I was on set for 16 hours yesterday. I was on set for 12 today. And then tomorrow, I got to go all the way out to Lancaster for a shoot. I got to be up and at the place at 6:40.
Oh, my God.
And then I have to come back and then get maybe a couple hours of sleep and then drive to Vegas for
So you're
NAB.
basically going to sleep 2 hours tonight or 3 hours tonight and then 2 hours tomorrow.
Yeah, and then go to Vegas.
Well, at least it's
I mean, the
Vegas.
Vegas portion, I think,
Yeah.
could be avoided, but we're a little bright.
We should ask the listeners
I was
what they
trying
think,
to.
whether or not that he should or not go to
Go to
Vegas.
Vegas?
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to Vegas. Don't even tempt me. I'm going to Vegas. It's
Not even an
I feel
option.
like
It's always-
I feel like it's a little more about like Ramsey Burger and what's the name of the pizza place more than the actual convention.
Giordano's?
Yeah, Giordano. I think- I feel like
Yes.
it's a little bit more about that than the actual like
I mean, it could
event.
be.
No,
It could
it's
be.
driving
it's
to.
about going there and like meeting the people who work at like Orca Bags and then being able to like go up and like make friends with them and then follow them all on social media and then maybe get free Orca stuff or free Sennheiser.
I really hope
or
they check
free
out this
Rode.
podcast.
Yes, I was gonna say we should definitely have him listen to this episode.
How Corey's trying to get free shit.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think they mind.
Or just see the new shit. Just like to go up and be like, what's this right here? And have them explain it to me. And
how
then
about
be
you
like,
bring your
"Oh."
Orca stuff and just put it on top of the
Just
desk
walk
right
around
now?
with
Just
it
wear
all
my
day.
kit
yeah,
all
just
day.
wear it right now so that it's.
I'm really into this sound thing. I don't know.
So we have already skipped, and for those of you who aren't watching the live video, yes, that is the third voice that you hear. Go ahead and introduce
Beautiful
yourself.
third voice. Hi, I'm Roberto Arrizon, a friend of the podcast, as you usually refer to. And yeah, I am honored to be a guest in this very special occasion.
Guest, not guest star. That's correct.
Guest
and,
star.
we are
Sorry, guest star.
One of the focuses today is going to be, first of all, we still have the multi-camera lens. Everybody. Wait, what's up going on up there?
Look at this board work. Look at me doing
Look
things.
at Corey, he's doing things. Me too, I'm doing things too. On the computer. Anyway,
What's the point of having two cameras if you're not going to use them? I think
we
that's
got to
a
use
very
the second
real-
one right there. What's up?
By the way, for everybody out there, as a fan of the podcast, this whole time I actually believed that they were looking at the buildings back here.
Nope.
I found that it's a lie.
It is a lie. It's a lie.
Show
know
the
if you-
high angles. So people
Wait,
know all
if you
about
check
it.
it our high angle, wait, this is clearly
There's a place where the world ends.
For all they
us.
know, it's a big window. We're just sitting in front of a big window.
I don't know if you know this, but every news program not done in front of a big window where you see the city, deep in the bowels of a building somewhere. So it's all trickery. But we brought Roberto on today because he is going to play the voice of the fans and asking questions as we move down through kind of our topics of the day. Now, if you come to us generally for
Sports ball or
yes,
news.
for news and
or-
all that stuff. This is not going to be your episode, unfortunately. We're going to walk down memory lane from the last 5 years. That's 261 episodes, no matter how you really count it. There has to be a lost episode somewhere.
Yeah, well,
I don't think we looked through. We counted all the episodes.
And if you find magical episode, 176 that doesn't actually exist because we skipped it, please let us know. That would be fantastic. But I took the time today to review all 260 episodes, 259 up to this point, and it was a magical experience for me, just going down memory lane.
So it's basically been 5 years, correct?
This will be the end of the 5th year. Next week, we'll be starting our 6th year of the podcast.
Yes, and just as a little tease for that, next week we have many things to unveil, many amazing things to unveil. If I do say so myself,
lots of things happening.
Yeah, and it will involve O The Anthem as a property all on its own. It'll involve Rob personally, and it'll involve me personally. So there we go. We got a little bit of everything going on.
It might even involve me too. Who knows?
And maybe Roberto will be shot into the sun. We'll find out.
Let's find out. And if you ever wonder what it is Corey's messing with on the desk, take a look at it right there. It's his phone right next to the board.
I try to keep up the show notes.
There you go.
They keep disappearing on me.
So I want to take you back, Corey, to April 14th of 2014. Mm-hmm. Now, this day was not special, except for you had to stay up all night the night before because if you remember, I think there was a problem with what's the place we used to host? The very first place we hosted? The website's still there. Oh, no, we're also there. Everything's still there.
Yeah.
What is it?
WordPress?
There was a problem with WordPress with the first episode, and I remember you calling me the next morning like, it's up. I barely got it up, but it's up. But if you go back 2 days before that, on a Saturday, we were recording the very first episode of the podcast.
I'm curious, actually, as a listener, and I'm sure for a lot of listeners out there that might not know the story, but I'm curious, what was it that made you guys think or decide, you know what, we should do a podcast?
I refuse to answer on the grounds that it may incriminate me.
So it started back in 2002, where we would...
Oh, wow. 2002 and you started in 2014.
Yes. So one of many delays. But we started
It wasn't 2002, I don't think. It wasn't that long.
No, because that was where we just get into discussions outside of...
okay. Yeah, that's what
the
you're
college
talking.
dorms.
Yeah. 2002 when we first met.
Yes. Yeah. And we'd get into these long-winded discussions and people would just kind of like group around us with their drinks and their cigarettes and listen to us talk and argue about everything. And... it was entertaining at that point. And then
have you ever seen old videos, or not videos, but like movies where they show like back in the days where there would be people who were trying to proselytize and then just groups of people would just walk up in the village square? That was kind of what it was like.
That still happens in LA. I still see people with like Bibles out in the corner, like, come listen to the good news. And I'm like, I've heard it. Thanks.
But Rob and I would just go back and forth on whatever topic we got into.
Yeah.
And then just people would just walk up and just sort of like sit there and watch.
Ask questions sometimes. Sometimes they would be throwing out questions. And sometimes people would try to get involved. And then eventually after like being berated by both of us for a few minutes, they would just melt back into the crowd. But so that was 2002. And then in 2005, Corey left from New York. I moved to Baltimore in 2008. Yes. No, 2007, maybe late 2007, 2008. So we started like hanging out a lot again. And we did the same thing outside of the building in...
Charles Center?
Charles Center, yes. But the first time we were in Charles Center.
Yeah.
When I was
actually in Charles Center.
Yeah. And kind of the same thing happened outside in this little like seating area outside of the building. And Corey told me about this new thing where like, hey, you don't have to really be a star to be on the radio anymore. Because at that time, I don't even think it was podcasting. It was HD radio over the internet.
No, it was podcasting, but it was literally like 4 people were doing it.
Yeah. Maybe that was it.
That was actually going to be my next question. I don't remember listening or hearing about podcasts up until pretty recently.
So where it started for me personally was that I used to listen to a lot of sports radio throughout the course of the day when I was at work. But then I was always upset that like right when I had to do something, they would say something on the radio show like, coming up next, Cal Ripken Jr. is going to tell you all the secrets of being the best baseball player that ever lived. I'm just like, why am I missing this?
I know I have to go make beef.
Why do I have to handle my job?
Yes.
So I realized that a lot of radio shows that I liked also had like a podcasting type of thing associated with it where you could listen to the show at your leisure.
I don't think it was called podcasting. It was just like you could get bits of the
It was
show.
like the archive.
Yeah, the archive of the show.
And then I realized that there were like 5 people in the world who were doing podcasts or something like that at the time. There was like Corolla and Mark Maron and Nerdist and
Gary V probably.
No, not Gary V.
Gary V wasn't even anybody at that point.
Gary V was just sucking on his mama's titty at that point.
Yeah, he was. He was 13, but still, I guess. But no, in 2008, it was not even a thing. It was just a thing that very few people even knew about. I did not even know about it. I was too busy with a lady taking up all of my time. So.
But yeah, and I think I pitched at one point to Rob. I was just like, we should do a podcast. I think it'd be fun.
And that was in 2008.
Yes.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
And then I said, that sounds like a great idea. I'm going to move 4 hours away and go to school in New York. So I went to law school.
You actually also didn't say it was a great idea at first. I was just like, we should do a podcast. It's like an internet radio show, and I think it would be really great. And you're just like, that sounds like a horrible waste of time, and I don't think anybody would be interested.
To be fair, fast forward into shouting into the abyss for 14 consecutive days. But no, I think it was just a matter of like, we had no experience, and you were talking about people. Like, I knew who Adam Carolla was. And Adam Carolla did have a podcast. He got booted off terrestrial radio and said, hey, I'm going to go record a show in my garage, basically. And I was like, who the hell are we to be doing this thing that Adam Carolla does?
We're no Adam Carolla, that's for sure.
Mark Maron, I think, started like a little bit after that. But there were a couple people who were doing it. And literally it was just like, hey, I got booted off my job on terrestrial radio, and I'm going to go do this other thing.
Yeah.
And who are we to get into that business?
game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2014.
Well, no, so not even fast forward 2018, because less than 2 years later, I was back in Baltimore and we were living together, and these same conversations that used to happen outside were happening in the kitchen of our apartment.
Right.
And
usually at times like this, like somewhere in between 12 and 3 o'clock in the morning.
yes, yeah, generally speaking. Back when I was young and we were both delinquents. But and it was a matter. I mean, I think Corey brought up the idea again there, and then we had the discussion of like, we should do this, but we don't have any of the equipment, and the startup costs are high. And I was in law school and supporting a family of 2 or 3 on that point. Right? Was that the? Yeah. That was a Religious Delight.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway,
So many stories.
Oh, there's so much.
And that's the thing. You really to really appreciate where the podcast is going. You really have to just like check in at certain points along the way, and just hear about us talking about certain portions of our life that like pass through. And it's the type of thing that like I think what makes Rob and my relationship so interesting is that it's happened over such a long period of time, like since 2002. So we're talking about 17 years here. And it's like just the things you know about somebody over the course of 17 years makes it easier to like, hit those touchstones, like when you meet somebody for the first time, you don't know anything. Like you don't know what to ask them about. You don't know what to say to like get them like all riled up or something like that. I know instantly the things that I can do or say to push Rob's buttons.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that I think that we kept wanting to do it, but there were things that stood in the way.
Mainly crazy women who tried to ruin my life for a long time. But
I'm gonna fucking kill myself.
Oh, hey, Corey. What's up?
Man.
Anyway, so that was in 2008 or 2009, and we lived together for a couple of years and never really got together. And then I moved home in 2011. Got approved for the bar in 2012, so I'd been doing that for a while. I don't really remember what made us say let's finally do it, but Corey,
I think you started listening to podcasts.
Maybe that's what it was. I started, and I'm like, you know what? A bunch of schmucks are doing this. We're a couple of schmucks. Let's do this. But Corey came down to my apartment in Denton, and we recorded the first practice podcast, which I think still exists somewhere.
Yeah.
And we recorded
It was for our ears only at the point.
Do you remember what you guys talked about?
I really think it was just sort of a free-form discussion, sort of like this was, just to sort of see what it felt like and like how. Because, I mean, like, the idea was that we didn't want to release an episode 1 and then start talking to people and, like, trip on something,
Yeah.
and not know like how to get around something. So like I think episode 0, as we sort of called it, was like intentionally trying to run into as many walls as possible to see like how we could get around it. You know?
I think that first episode we for a while, this is another thing you get when you listen to all of them back to back. We started episode 1 doing like topics of the week, kind of like we do now, but like thoroughly researched.
Yeah.
And like the first 17 episodes were really set up that way. And that was because I think after that we got into a more like, how was your week, Corey? Oh, I did this and this and this. And then for like 100 episodes, it was like, that's how we introed the podcast. It was the intro a version of what we kind of do now. And then like, well, how was your week? And let's talk about our week. That came from episode 0, but we were so uncomfortable trying to like get into a conversation that didn't feel forced in episode 0 that 1 became like, okay, so we're going to talk about these topics and we're going to look into it before, so it's well rehearsed and well researched.
And then eventually what we started to do to like sort of jumpstart it was we would just turn on the microphones and Rob and I would just start talking for like half an hour or something like that. And we just go off on like whatever nonsense came to our minds. And more often than not, Rob would be like, why aren't we recording this? Why aren't we releasing this?
Yeah.
But it was like a way to like get like warmed up before the pod. It was like running on the treadmill a little bit before you get into the gym.
So are you telling me you don't thoroughly research your topics anymore?
No, I mean, honestly, now sometimes I am on my way home and Corey's like, hey, it's Monday. And I'm like, oh, shit. All right. So we got a podcast today. Let's do that.
I swear, somewhere in my Google Drive, I'm sure there's like the 18-page document you made about the Bay Bridge or something.
East versus West, episode 4. Everybody should check that. Or 5. The one that I sent you no, wait, it was a different one. So another thing I did is I found a bunch of the promos that Corey shot for our first episodes, which were amazing. They were amazing. If anybody wants to go back and find the episode, we talked about the World Cup and Corey's Brandy Chastain moment. That was entertaining.
Yeah.
Just Brandy Chastain. That's it. But so 2012.
What I also like about us just as a podcast in general is that like when I made that Brandy Chastain reference in the World Cup video, like that was like a full decade beforehand.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like something that was kind of in the news for like a week and a half when it happened was just like Brandy Chastain took her shirt off and she was just in a sports bra and then it just passed. And like people like, if I'm like, name soccer players, they're the women's soccer players, they'll be like Mia Hamm.
That's it. That's all I got.
Hope Solo, maybe?
I was gonna say, there was one who was in the Fappening, right? I remember that. There was
God.
one of the Fappening girls. But no, but 10 years later, Corey's shooting a promo video for us with a Brady Chastain reference in it. So, but no, so 13, we did the practice episode, and then we let it kind of rest, and it was a lot of like discussing how it would work and what we would do, and then. Like I think in April we sat down. It was I think at that point we were both listening to a couple of Orioles podcasts, and I think we had the idea that we might talk about more sports.
Yeah.
So we tried to start right around the beginning of the Orioles season, but not opening day.
I think we also said to ourselves like if we do a video of the time lapse of opening day,
that is right,
and then do
that
like
is the promo,
a like. Sort of sampling of us conversating, even though it was written and just felt very written. I remember, like, in retrospect, it was a terrible idea. We should have just recorded us talking for like 20 minutes and figured out the best 2-minute section and just shoved it in the video. But it was just a lot of like, I was just like, this would maybe be a video that would get popular, not like viral popular, but just like regular.
some people around. Yeah.
Maybe 500 people would, or 1,000 people would see this video and then get excited about the prospect of our podcast.
Yeah.
And then we did the episode the next week, I think, after
I think
opening
we
day.
recorded it the week after opening day, and then it went up the Tuesday after opening day, which is how you know that the second week of April is the anniversary week of the show, this being the first week of April, as it were. So
Yeah.
Anyway, so that first episode we did, just to tell you how far we've been in the last 5 years, we did MySpace quizzes, which are a thing. They might have been a thing then. I don't remember how long.
Wow.
Well, no, I think it was. I think it was kind of out of like the reason why that came up was I was just like I think I said something along the lines of like, I don't feel like I know people as well anymore because they don't take MySpace quizzes.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, because that used to just come up every once in a while on like your feed for MySpace, or it's just like somebody answering like 37 questions about them. It's just like, do you have any brothers or sisters? What's your favorite color? What kind of turtle do you think you are?
I'm gonna get to know this girl who I have a crush on.
By the way, to all the listeners out there, just so you can get an idea of how the difference in age, when you guys were recording a podcast talking about like MySpace quizzes, I was literally in middle school.
In 2014?
Yeah, I was in middle school. Well, no.
You're a 20-year-old middle schooler?
No.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me as much as it should, probably.
No, I just remember having a computer lab class in middle school where our class was actually like customizing our MySpace.
Yeah, that was
website.
Probably 2008.
Yeah,
so.
maybe.
But he might have been a 20-year-old middle schooler from the high angle. Oh, crap.
What'd you do?
What did I do? What's going on? From the high angle, what you can see is that Roberto has an oddly shaped head. It's unfortunate. It's
X-shape.
Yeah,
it's like Adam's
it's X-shaped. It's that's why he was in the slower classes. 20-year-old middle schooler. But yeah, that's right. It was the introducing us to the audience by doing a MySpace quiz. But the other topic of that episode, which I found interesting, was the Comcast Time Warner merger. Comcast still exists. Time Warner, neither of those things are important anymore. Yeah. By the way, that was just after the AOL Time Warner split, where AOL was sold off to one of the major corporations that failed in 2008 and almost caused the collapse. Damn, I'm never going to remember it. But yeah, one of the banks. Nonetheless, Time Warner now doesn't exist. It is multiple pieces.
Yeah.
But the name Time Warner, I think, is our internet provider?
Yeah, Spectrum.
Yes, Spectrum. Spectrum Time is formerly Time Warner.
Yeah.
But literally,
just like Comcast used to be Comcast, and now it's Xfinity.
Yes, yeah. It's literally the name Time Warner and nothing else of the company that exists. Time Magazine is no longer a part of Time Warner, the company.
Yeah,
the media company has been split up so many times, but nonetheless, that's how long ago. And then basically, what I went down through is to try and follow stuff. We had our 1-year live show, which was really fun to do. We did that at Andy Nelson's, and we had.
What do you mean by live show?
We did a show live. We had a live audience.
Oh wow!
There was 20 people sitting there watching us record a show.
Yeah.
We had a little celebration, and if I remember correctly, we showed the first cut of the love letter.
Yeah.
At that showing. And nobody else had seen it at that point. So, and then we did another live event for the love letter.
No, we just did a podcast after the love letter.
That's right. Yeah. While we were shooting it, which I guess would have come before.
Maybe we should look into doing another live episode here in LA.
We have like 10 people who know us here in LA, so I'm sure it would be well attended. But before after the 1-year live show, we also had an episode 100 where we celebrated the first 100 episodes of the show. And now I'm realizing the reason we didn't do a 2-year celebration is because that would have been episode 104. So what was the point of doing 100 and then 104?
And if I remember correctly, if I put on my thinking brain here for a second, I feel like we basically on the 204 episode or something like that was just like, yeah, we could celebrate our 2-year anniversary, but we just did OTA 100 and fuck yourself.
Yeah. Also at episode 100, we rolled out the Patreon content where we had all of those pre-recorded episodes, or the pre-recorded of us like joking around before the episode.
The pre-roll.
Made it available along with other stuff was available before other people. And our Patreon content lasted less than 100 episodes. Yeah. That's about how long it went. So I think we kept doing the pre-roll stuff, but just like there was nothing else really being done. And then I think after we finished the Patreon stuff is when we did the webisodes. It was a few months after we finished the Patreon. Like we stopped the kind of wraps on the Patreon, and then we were like, "Oh, let's do webisodes," and we could have given that for free. But
we couldn't. The hardest part about this podcast and like Patreon and stuff like that, and it's the thing I was trying to like figure out like when we first started doing it was what exactly do we like? What kind of bonuses do we have for people? And we started writing things of like, like, oh, enjoy a 30-minute Google Hangout with the guys every month or something like that. And it's just like, but all the people who donated on Patreon could like literally call me.
Yes,
like,
everybody who gave us money knew us, and we saw them for more than 30 minutes in a month. So yeah,
it's just like, I better get on that Google Hangout with Jim.
Somebody gave us an angry face. Oh, who's angry at fucking 12:40 in the morning Pacific time? Maybe it's somebody on the Eastern Standard who's getting up early for work.
Can you not check?
I can't, or else we're going to lose the video. So I can check it. I got the identifier. Don't have anything else. It's going to make a lot of noise. Don't do that. Okay. So one thing I do want to kind of review while we're talking about our 5 years. Well, first of all, to go through the years. So we didn't celebrate 2. We did celebrate 3. Kind of. It was just kind of a mention of 3.
Yeah.
4 was our first year in California.
Mm-hmm. Did you celebrate 4?
We did have we didn't celebrate. We just had an episode where we talked about, hey, it's 4th year anniversary for like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Here's my question. Here's something I'm curious about.
Yeah.
Did you at any point think about not doing it anymore? To stop? Did you consider stopping the podcast?
I think that there was a couple of times.
Like I feel like, for example, like, and I'm sure you'll talk about this, the whole like moving process to LA. Like you have not missed a single week. That's meant a lot of like pre-recorded episodes or having to figure out a way around scheduling. Yeah. So did at any point did you guys just think like, oh, maybe we should?
I think there was a lot of times like It's really like a job. So I think there's like a lot of times like when you're at your work, even if you like your job or even if you like the people you work with and stuff like that, where like, you have to go in early for one day to do paperwork or something like that. And you're just like, I fucking hate this job. I'm going to quit. But like at the end, like once you've done it, you're just like, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. So there's like a lot of times where it's just like right now, like I would really rather be asleep. But like, and I know Rob would really rather be asleep, but I mean, like, we sort of have this, like, it feels like we have to do this too.
Yeah. And I think that there was a lot of times in the year before we moved where it was a lot of that. Where it was like, I had like a long day at court and then I had to come up and do the podcast after that and then drive back home after that. And it was just a lot of long days. Mm-hmm. Corey had been talking about moving to LA right after he got back from
film school,
from NIFA.
Yeah.
And I think that if he had left at that point, the podcast probably would have stopped.
Right.
Because the 2 people being busy on 2 coasts 4 time zones apart would have been probably too much to keep it up. And then I came to him after my decision to move to LA was like Dominican Republic. I just didn't really feel like I was like, I'm done with this job. Let's move on. And I came back and I was like, hey, so September I'm going to move to LA. I'd really like you to come along.
So you were the one that actually decided, like, you know what?
He gave me a book called Hollywood Drive, which I highly recommend for anybody who is interested in working in the movie industry at all. And I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to quit my job, move to LA. And I did. Basically, like 2 weeks later, I gave notice at my job. But I told him, I'm like, hey, so I'm going to do this. You have been talking about it for a while. I think it's a good opportunity. But he had other factors, work and personal and a lot of things. And I knew that maybe me saying, hey, 6 months from now, I'm moving to LA is like a bit of a...
I think we had originally planned earlier too.
Well, September was the original date. But then the Orioles started doing well.
Well, no, I mean, like, I think we had originally said, like, let's move out there.
I'm okay.
Let's move out there in August. And then we were just like, well, we have all these Oriole tickets. It's just like, all right, so we'll do it September instead. And then it was just like...
July was my initial one because I was quitting my job in June. And I was like, I'll have 1 month to get my shit together. And then July we go. But then we had the season tickets. And we're like, all right, well, we'll stick it out to the end of season.
It's like, especially because the Orioles looked like they were promising. And it's just like,
yes.
And then we kept doing these things of like, all right, well, if they make it to the World Series, we're going to have to leave in October rather.
Okay, so no joke. I have from so many years ago. Let's see if we can find it.
The plan.
I do. I had the breakdown. Bernadette Simmons. That's a character from one of your things.
Well,
isn't
Bernadette was, but not Simmons. Bernadette Wolf was the name of the character.
I can't find it in here. But I had the whole plan where it was like, okay, so if the O's are knocked out before the end of the season, this is what it looks like when we leave. If they make it to the first round of the playoffs, well, that means we have to go at least 3 weeks later because by the time that round is over, and then giving notice at the end of that, and then this is what it's going to be. And like we planned out like multiple leave dates, and then I think we were planning on. Did the car accident happen and delay us again?
Yeah. So we made the plan. Like we as soon as the Orioles were eliminated in the wild card game that year, you're just like, all right,
What a
so we're
surprise.
leaving next week.
Yeah.
And then like 2 days before we left, Rachel rear-ended somebody.
Right. On 695.
Yeah, and then her car had to go in the shop, and it delayed us a day because we were originally going to spend like 2 days in Vegas or something like that.
Wait. That first delay delayed us a couple weeks. We had to push back like a week or two. The scraping delayed us a day on Halloween night. Were you sideswiped or you got sideswiped on Halloween night? The rear-ending somebody happened a couple weeks
did
before.
or Rachel did?
Somebody did on Halloween night.
Somebody hit
Rachel.
me in Rachel's car.
Yes. And
I was
sideswiped
driving. Yeah.
And we had to get that fixed, which pushed us a day. And we
Yeah.
lost a day in LA or in Las Vegas.
Right.
The first accident, though, pushed us back a couple of weeks because it was like, it's going to take like 10 days to fix. We're like, okay, so we'll just roll back 10 days and then we're going to go.
I think that actually worked out with the wild card game too, if I remember correctly.
It might have been, it might have been that we were traveling out to get the lease.
I don't know.
I can't remember.
Yeah. I'd be a horrible witness.
Yeah. Just trying to think.
What made you go to LA? I don't know.
To be fair, that was also 5 years ago. So I mean, who's to remember? But
So you ended up moving in November,
yes,
right?
we got here on November 22nd. We pre-recorded one episode. We recorded one on the road, and then we recorded one literally like the day.
Where
after
were you
we got
when you
here.
recorded on the road?
Denver.
Yeah. Well,
So
that was
just
a
at the
bonus
hotel.
episode.
Just at the hotel in Denver. You just set up the stuff in.
Denver was a bonus.
Yeah, we did record one on the road though, didn't we?
We recorded before we left, and then once we got here, I think.
Maybe that was it. But like, yeah, so we got here on a Wednesday.
Because I remember like the first couple episodes, once we got to LA, we didn't do video or anything like that. Because we were just like, this is a fucking shit show. Moving is horrible.
Yeah, moving is the worst, especially out across the country without anything in your car.
Yeah.
With a
'cause I think
3-car convoy.
we got here on a Monday, and we had to record. Did we have to record right away? I feel like we didn't have an episode for that week.
No, we did. I think we just like, we told people like, oh, it might not come out till Wednesday or Thursday this week.
Okay,
Like,
yeah.
that sort of thing.
That's true. That might have been it. And then,
you know what? Honestly, we've been pretty consistent about getting them out on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Except for like the dozen times or so in the last 260 episodes where like either YouTube said like it's gonna take 2.5 days to upload your video or something like that. Where I just like I've aged so horribly in those days where I'm like I'm sending out tweets like thinking that people are like waiting with bait because like if there's a podcast I really like and their episode is like late by like 15 minutes over like when it's usually released, I'm just like that's the pod save America. Like
I do get upset when I get on the bus to head to work, and on Tuesdays, the only thing that's new in my queue on Tuesdays is script notes. And when it's not there, I'm like, God damn it. And then usually by the time I get to work and I'm walking in, the new episode pops up, and I'm like, too late, too damn late.
I don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of like, oh fuck, what was it? A lot of episodes early on where we like, oh God, I just lost my complete train of thought.
Well, let's go
It's
circle back.
the no sleeping, I think. It just
So one of the other things I want to make sure we talk about is all the guests that we've had over the last 5 years.
Yes.
Because episode 3, we had our first guest on, and we continue to have repeat appearances by many of our friends.
I feel like at that point, like episode 3, you were still at that point where it's like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's just have whoever, you know.
No, it was actually very much like, are you going to provide something that's going to be on topic for this?
Oh, so
And
unlike now.
Unlike now, yes. But episode 3 was Shani. And coming on for the music episode because she formerly worked at a radio station and was like heavily invested. Actually, she was one of the voices in our record label that we were putting together at the time, which never came to fruition. So,
it still could happen.
could happen. So, a lot of stuff going
A
on.
few years in the making, but yeah.
I think most of our friends have appeared at one time or the other, and anyone we might have missed was there for the Outer Banks episode and was a.
Oh my God, Dixon Jupiter! I've literally never laughed harder at something more dumb. Like
so stupid.
we like, and listening to that episode again is funny sometimes because like there's just breaks where like we're like trying to get as far away from the microphone as possible because we're laughing and screaming at the same time. It's like those laughs was like,
like it is. That honestly was probably one of the best vacations. And I am not one who likes to vacation with other people because I feel like it's like, oh, we got to worry about everybody. Like Corey was sick one of the nights, and I felt
had a
really
migraine.
Yeah, I felt really bad that we went to the movies without him, and then like another night somebody else wasn't feeling well, and we went out to eat. I'm like, all right, so we can't talk about how good the food was when we get back because they're not going to feel good that they missed it. And that's why I hate traveling with people, but. That was a super fun vacation. And honestly, if you're going to do it, the Outer Banks house where it's like a vacation, but not really. You're at a house. It's kind of relaxed. It's not a hotel. It's very chill experience.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get enough friends to fill like a humongous beach house like that, because it was like a 6-bedroom home or something.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that was a lot of fun. I would like to do something like that again.
2000 and
sometime in the last 5 years.
16. I want to say 16. So no, it couldn't have been 16. It had to be 15 because it was the summer and we left. It wasn't the summer that we left. It was the summer before.
Okay, yeah.
So it had to be 2015. So it was the second year of the podcast, which Dixon Jupiter was in the first 100 episodes of the podcast. I cannot even comprehend that is the case. But so everybody was there at the live show. Some people guest starred on that. But another thing is that we have had girlfriends be on the show, which was also a trip down memory lane through the first 100 or so episodes of the various people who were on. Some of whom I was dating and didn't really make it apparent that I was dating them while on the show. Some of them were on the show and I was seeing them and Corey didn't know that I was seeing them. And he set up a chastity wall.
Just to be clear, I am not dating either one of these guys. This is not one of those instances.
I mean, to be fair, he's not dating anybody, so it's okay.
We had Aaron on like episode 4 or 5 or something like that.
Yeah, it was the nurses episode.
Was it?
Yep.
I thought we had I thought it was like the big old relationship episode or something like that.
Yes. Nope. She was on that one too, and we were seeing each other at that point.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was talking about the other Aaron. I was talking about Dayhall.
Oh, your Aaron?
Yeah.
Oh, your Aaron was on episode 2.
Okay, yeah.
The big old relationship episode,
yeah.
that was episode 2, yes. And then the other Aaron, who I was seeing, but nobody knew, was on episode 5. And several times after that, including the remote from Ocean City.
Yeah.
We did that. We've done so many fun things. It's weird to go back and think about it, but yeah. So 2 of Corey's girlfriends have been on the podcast. Of the 2 that he has dated in the last 5 years. And to go back to moments where I didn't know if the podcast would survive, that period in that fall, I didn't know if we were going to make it through.
Why?
Because there was a lot of like, I'm just trying to write, man. I'm just trying to write. I'm trying to get this out. And then I was like, can we do it tomorrow? Because I really don't want to break what I'm doing right now. And it was like, I feel like there was a lot of her wrapped up in this.
Yeah.
Because she had been on, by the way, by my count, it was like probably 15 plus episodes in that 2 years.
Who, Dayhall?
Yeah. So I don't...
See, I was even trying to rack my brain on when Rachel was on the episode.
Oh, no. So when we were in Baltimore, she was there a lot.
She was there, but she wasn't like on mic.
There was a couple of times where she participated, at least for part of the show, and then was more like a chime in and get out.
Yeah.
And sometimes where she was shouting from the other room.
Okay,
and she was like, yeah, that's Rachel in the other room.
Because I've said to Rachel before, like, do you want to be on the podcast? And she's just like, what would I say? Like,
yeah, no, I think that the time she was on, she was talking about something in particular. It was some topic that we were talking about. One of them was the one after EP's... the nursing, not carnival, but like the dinner.
Bull roast?
Yes. Yeah. Where EP was on and then Rachel was on as well.
Oh, okay.
But there was a couple of different times. Okay, when you go flip through all the episodes, you see that there's a lot. But
so 2 out of the 2 girlfriends that Corey stated.
Yes.
And 20 out of the 50 that you...
Of the women that I slept with while we were doing the podcast, several of them have been on the podcast. But it's weird, though, because I do flip through there and I see that, like, at no point did I ever say I was dating any of the people who were on.
Yeah.
I never talk about my significant other ever, even when there was 1 or 2 or 3. I never talked about them. Like I've talked about traveling partners. I've talked about people I'm seeing, and I refer to them only with that that
terminology.
nom
Oh,
de
I'm
guerre.
seeing somebody.
Yeah. So the person I'm seeing, we went to Florida and blah, 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 blah. And I guess if you follow me otherwise, you would know, because obviously I was posting on Instagram when I was in Florida and I was telling stories about it. But nonetheless.
See, I think the rationale that you always had for it was that you didn't want to be able to like look back, and like see episode 2 and then see like your girlfriend at the time on it or something like that.
Also, I didn't want her to be able to use it against me in a hearing.
But like, I don't know. I think that for me at least, it's interesting because much like how the rest of our lives change over the course of that time. It's just interesting to watch, like you're like, oh yeah, this is. I think you could tell too, like when Aaron and I broke up.
Yeah.
Like in terms of like the podcast,
there was a
I
shift.
didn't want to like talk about it.
Yeah.
But like I was just sort of like talking in like weird like all of a sudden I had a lot more time.
Yep, got other things to do. I'm writing a lot now, and you know. But
Got a lot of stuff going on.
One thing I do want to talk about is that I have always wanted to be a journaler. When live journal was a thing, remember that? I did live journal for a while, but I've just never had the patience to set aside 5 minutes at the end of a day and write in a journal, which is what Teddy Roosevelt did every single day for like 40 years.
Yeah.
With the exception of 2 days. But and he opened the journal in those days. He just didn't write anything. I've always wanted that, and then I've never have. And I feel like you miss out on so much when you don't have like a history.
Some sort of record, yeah.
But going back through all 260 episodes today, one thing I realized is the podcast has become our journal of sorts for us. From the very first episodes where we kind of talked about everything to shooting the love letter, putting out the love letter, so many trips. I didn't realize how much you travel. You travel a lot. You know that? You're always going to Chicago and LA and then San Francisco, and I'm in Wyoming, and I'm just going to New York, and I went to Boston, and I'm here and I'm there. Corey travels a lot, all right? Don't let him fool you. He's a traveling man.
He's going to Vegas tomorrow.
I know, right? Jesus.
I travel. The problem is that like I travel a lot like on impulse.
Yes.
Like Detroit. That was a complete.
So I was going to say, one of the things I forgot, and it's like you don't forget, it's not there in your memory.
Yeah.
Like, we decided on 3 days' notice to drive to Detroit for a playoff game. And I wrote a really beautiful fucking summary of that trip and how much it moved me. And that has been lost somewhere for the last 4 years. I sent it to you guys in the group chat.
I saw it.
But it's so weird that like I don't even remember that until I'm primed with it. I'm like, oh yeah. I have been in Detroit. We drove there on 3 days' notice on a weekend. And on the way back, we were taking like 15-minute turns with the wheel because we were all so tired. Literally, EP was sitting in the seat next to me, and she taps my shoulder, and she's like, are you all right? And I look over, and I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And I fell asleep, and she said, I watched your head go down while you said, oh, I'm fine. So then I had to pull over.
I remember at one point during that drive, like it was my turn to drive, and like I got behind the wheel, and I'm just like, and I was like, I can't like 5 minutes into taking the wheel be like, somebody else has got to do this. Like,
it was the worst. The drive back was the worst. But somebody had to work.
We really should have just gotten a hotel.
We should have
called in sick and got a hotel.
All of that to not call in sick on Monday.
Yeah.
When it was obvious because the Orioles were playing. Like, oh, anyway. But so going to Detroit, other things I had forgotten about. Corey sang the anthem several times at several events.
Yeah.
Professional bull riding. By the way, professional bull riding.
Which
at
is something
the Royal
Corey is
Farms
very
Arena
familiar with.
in Baltimore. And Corey sang the anthem for that.
Yeah.
For the football, was it also a football game? No, it was
the blast. Yeah,
yes,
that was the
blast.
first time I did it. I won a contest. I had the flu and won a contest, a singing contest.
Which just for our listeners to know, this is all available online. Of course.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can find videos.
I seem to remember the us talking about the PBR being particularly funny too, because like I feel like I got off on like because like everything was sponsored.
Yes,
or something.
literally everything is sponsored at the event.
And like we were just going off of like this national anthem brought to you by Budweiser.
So let me ask you: after we talked about you doing PBR, singing the anthem at PBR, when was the next time we talked about the Royal Farms Arena? I really hope she never listens to this podcast because I'm going to mention it.
I don't know.
Because that would have been the third time that you didn't pay to go into Royal Farms. The first was the Blast game. You saw the game for free.
Yeah.
Technically the second was the Blast game that you saw for free. The third was the PBR where you got to watch it after you did the anthem. What was the first?
I mean, I was at Monster Jam. I did Monster Jam too.
Oh, was there more? Okay, so we didn't talk about that on the podcast though. Then, because I don't know, or it wasn't a major
that was
topic.
prior to.
Yeah, maybe
it would have to be because we were moving from Ridgely's Delight to Park Charles the day that I did it.
Yeah. So that would have been prior.
So
to
because I had to take like an hour break between the move to like put on a shirt and go down to Royal Farms Arena and sing the anthem and leave.
So I don't even remember that because the other time I thought of was also before the podcast. It was when my sister had a booty call with one of the football players and got us free tickets.
Yeah.
And like 3 episodes after your PBR, I'm like, so I was thinking about it. I have been there without paying before. You remember my sister got us tickets to the fucking football game?
Yeah, that was fun.
The things you don't think about while you're on there. But so trips and adventures and relationships and new cars. Corey's had 1,000 bad cars. I've killed multiple cars.
I
while
haven't
we've
had
been doing
1,000
the podcast.
bad cars.
Just one really bad car that counts for 1,000. I think.
I think I had 2 bad cars. Not in the period of the podcast, but just in general, I had 2 bad cars.
We did talk about the Mitsubishi a lot.
I had 3 bad cars. I forgot about the Eclipse. And you know what? I didn't. The Eclipse wasn't like a bad car. It was just like
a bad car.
It was kind of like Detroit. It had a lot of heart, but it just looked like shit.
I really want to repost that thing because that's basically my theme. My theme is like Detroit's got a lot of heart. We just got to give it some backup. Like they're ready. But yeah, the Mitsubishi.
I had the Ford. You remember the Taurus, the green Taurus?
Oh my god!
So you have 4 really bad cars.
The Taurus wagon, right?
No, it was a Taurus sedan. It was my grandmother's old car.
Were you driving a wagon at some point though?
No.
A red wagon?
No.
Oh man, I thought for sure. Anyway, okay, sorry, Taurus. Yes.
And like I kept saying to myself, like, you know, like out of respect, I can't get rid of this car until it's dead. Like I have to drive it into the ground. And like I had a deer going like 90 in it, and it was like nothing. Like it was like I hit a butterfly on the highway or something like that. And there was another time where like I got like a nail in my tire or something like that, and I had to replace that. Like I was saying, like the only thing I'm doing is like oil changes and tire rotations.
Right.
Anything else, I'm just getting rid of this goddamn car. And then like I had to get like a new tire, and they were just like, "Oh man, that new tire is gonna cost you like I don't know, $50." And I'm like, $50? I'm not putting $50 into this death machine.
Which automatically makes me think you've had 4 cars because that Infiniti.
Yeah.
I feel like it was a magnet for you running into things or having things run into you. Twice when you came down to visit me, you got in car accidents. One big one at the Bay Bridge.
That was it. That was the last.
And that was the last straw because it like broke in the entire front of the car.
Yeah, that was when I was totaled.
Corey with the QX4. Can you imagine? Do you remember the QX4?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh.
No, I love that car.
Too many years of memories.
So either Corey just has had really bad cars, or he's really a bad driver. So it's
I mean, I think it's we both just kind of had the mentality that a car is a car, and I'm going to drive this motherfucker in the ground, and we then bury multiple cars. That's what happened. Like, I literally bought my first brand new car, well, my second brand new car, because I had that Tiburon for a long time.
Yeah,
and I ran 250 of the worst miles on that car, back and forth to New York, who knows how many times, and learned how to drive a stick on that car. Three clutches later, like whole 9. But I just ran it until I was driving down the road, and it literally just said, poof, and the hood like eggshelled out. It was like, poof. And I was like, all right, that's it. That's it for that one. So I pulled over, and I was like, I think I can limp it to Easton. And like, I got it in first, and we rolled in first all the way down the highway. And that was it. That was the end of that car.
Yeah.
But the next one I got was a Kia, and I had that for 4 months before I got run off the road by a 17-year-old. And she ruined it. But again, there was a lot of cars involved.
I feel like anytime if I could just like, man, I wish I just tagged it with like WRX along the way.
Yes.
But like anytime where I talked about like the WRX being in the shop,
like I noticed you're in the Merc today. Oh God, let me tell you about this bullshit.
Yeah, because I would come into the podcast like every single week that something happened, and I'd just be like, all right, listen to this fucking story about the
most reliable car in America. It's a Subaru. Nothing ever happens. Let me tell you what happened.
Yeah. Including the one time where like the guy, like it was like the third time in like 2 months that I was at like IAG Performance to get my car fixed. And like he came out with like a piece of paper and he's just like, I had to look this up because it's literally never happened in the history of this shop. Your clutch fork broke. And I'm just like, and I'm just like, what? Is it like the plate or like the? He's like, no. It's a piece of metal that helps guide the plate into the. And I'm just like, that broke? It's just like, I have no idea how it happened. And I'm just like,
the worst. They make 9,999 really great cars. All the worst pieces go into one car and end up in Corey's driveway.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
And then I seem to remember like talking to the guy. I was just like, all right, so how much does it cost to fix this? He's just like,
I have no idea.
like anytime where they start with like a long exaggerated sigh. And he was like explaining like we have to literally take your engine out and like completely take your car apart to like a component basis to get so far into your car to get
to this thing, and then we're gonna change this very small piece that really should never have broken.
Gonna change the small little piece of metal that has never broken in the history of Subaru.
By the way, not covered. It's not covered. I'm sorry. None of this is covered. But
it's not covered under your 10,000 mile warranty.
But 10,000 miles later, I want to say one thing we talked about last week was how far have we been into it? Episode 136 was the last episode before we left Baltimore, which means that not including the 2 weeks that we were in transition, we will need to get to episode, let's call it 272, in order to have equal episodes in Los Angeles and Baltimore.
That's crazy.
Now, as I said, we were at episode 260. We are 12 weeks from it being just as many episodes in Los Angeles as were in Baltimore.
Yeah, that's nuts. Like
I can't even.
What do you guys feel like has been the biggest change in the podcast throughout the years?
Oh.
Obviously, the quality, maybe. I don't know.
No, I don't think I will say that the content's good.
I can actually think of one moment that really like fucking changed things in the podcast, and it was we were recording on like Friday nights for a long time.
Yep,
and there were a lot of times where something would break. There would be like Friday news dump things that would happen right before we did the podcast, and we would just go into it. And most of the time, it was never a problem. Mm-hmm. The one time we like, no lie, it was like we were watching it on TV, and then we walked in and then did a podcast and talked about it, where it was Trump's like grab him by the pussy comments and stuff like that. And I think both of us were just taking the angle that like this guy is like. He's preposterously, completely unintentionally hilarious.
Yes.
Like he's not a funny person. It's not like he tells jokes.
We laugh at him.
But he says things that are so like stupidly funny. And like we were going into this whole like, like joking about it and going on and blah, blah, blah. And like at no point talked about like the troubling nature of what he was actually saying. Just that it was like amusing that he was so dumb.
Yeah.
And then like, it felt like that was the first time where it really felt like the world like fell on us, like from like the reaction to it.
Yep.
And like at that point, for a couple weeks after that, I was really gun shy, I think, about saying anything that I thought might be a little bit too far. Yes. Because like most of the time this podcast, like I hear about it sort of tangentially from people. Like they'll be like, "Oh, I heard that episode you did a couple weeks ago about this." And like Rob would hear messages from people all the time.
Yes.
But like I'd sort of like have like a further distance from people talking to me about it. But that week, like my mentions like blew up. Like I had like 100 people like going, I can't believe you fucking think Trump's hilarious and he talked about raping women and like whoa.
We literally heard it and then went into the podcast.
Yeah, it was like it was 30 seconds before we went on and we're just like, this is gonna be talked about. And like
by the way, another thing that happened 30 seconds before we went on, when the mayor of Baltimore said, catch me on my Twitter feed, we're definitely going to talk about that. And then no one has ever since seen that video.
It was after the podcast.
Was it?
Yeah. Because we talked about Freddie Gray.
Oh, that's right.
And the funeral and stuff like that. And then like when we got off, we turned on the TV and saw like all the uprising stuff and, you know, Stephanie Rollins Blake and stuff like that.
Shit was crazy.
Yeah.
But
that was immediately after the podcast ended. I remember that one.
But so Freddie Gray happened. Ferguson happened while we were doing the podcast. Like all of these things have happened in the last 5 years. And I mean, that's one of the big changes I think is I have moved radically from the center to the left. And it was interesting to watch that happen over the last 5 years. Corey, funny enough, has moved from the right to the alt-right, which is very weird. I don't know how that happened. My radical move to the left.
I was gonna say Rob has moved from the left to the extreme left.
Yes.
I have moved from somewhere in the center to maybe more casually to the left. But like
we've gone from American politics to British politics at this point. Like we'll both argue about the same things.
I went from being an American conservative to a British conservative, which basically means I'm a Democrat now.
Basically, he's an American Democrat. I am further on the left. But I think that has changed in tone because I think that we went from kind of. And by the way, when do you think was Donald Trump's first mention on the podcast?
I feel like we might have mentioned him just, you know, like
in a political context.
Oh, in a political context.
Yeah.
Iowa.
So Iowa would have been just. I'm looking for a guess. Iowa
So it would have been like June of 2000 and no, way later. January of 2000 and why am I blank? 2016? Yeah.
So I thought so as well. I thought so. So that would put him somewhere in the episode 80 range.
Yeah.
About 20 weeks before for April. He actually showed up in mid 2015. Like mid by mid, I mean like June of 2015. So that puts him somewhere right around episode 60. Funny enough.
Did we talk about him running for?
We talked about him running for president and how ridiculous this idea was and how it wasn't going to go anywhere. And then he has since then become the number one topic of conversation for this podcast over the last 5 years, which is disheartening in so many ways. But it's just funny that our first mention was like, yeah, Donald Trump's getting in it. Remember when that happened in 2000? Yeah. Okay, we're over it. Let's go.
You know, going back to another thing, just talking about like the Trump comments that made my Twitter feed explode and stuff
Also
like that.
Yeah.
The other thing was when we talked about the fappening. That was like by far the most viewed episode of the podcast, most downloaded episode of the podcast ever.
Yeah.
And like, I really think because like the two of us were sitting there like trying to come up with like a title for the episode.
Yeah.
And we're just like, just put fappening out there.
That's where
Maybe
SEO
YouTube
is.
people are just going to type in fappening hoping to see naked chicks and get us talking about it instead. Naked celebrities. And like, it was like, I remember, you know, usually like I sort of look at the views like the week after, like when I'm posting the new episode, I'm just like, oh, I wonder how last week's episode did on YouTube and stuff like that. I remember looking at it and being like, we had 5,000 people watch this in a week.
That seems weird.
Like, that's way more than people usually watch the YouTube
I wonder
videos.
why that is.
And here's the thing. We pre-recorded 2 episodes after that because if you remember, second week of the second happening of the fappening, I was in Hawaii.
Yeah.
On vacation that week.
Why did you guys talk about the fappening? Like, what
It
was the topic?
It was topical. It was,
it was
what are the first topic that we actually talked about it was the legality of somebody breaking in and whether there was consequences for it. But I think that we also just got into like, how would you feel if video? Like, hey, there are videos that exist of me out there, and how would I feel if they became public? Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, if they're older videos, if they're like 2011 videos, have that.
When you're
I look amazing. If it's shit I was shooting earlier this year, let's just not. Nobody needs to see that. But besides the happening, that seems like a weird place to transition. I did want to talk about one other thing. As far as people we've had on the podcast, we've had some amazing guests come on the podcast.
Oh,
as well.
thank you very much.
And I don't mean friends. I do mean actual guests. There was a stretch there while we were still in Baltimore where we got interviews with David Warnock, who was running for mayor. We got
What
interviews
episode
with
was this? Do you remember?
four. What's that?
What episode was this? Do you remember?
I could not tell you.
Old Town Mall.
Right before Old Town Mall. It's 2 episodes before Old Town Mall. We had several, and then the episode right before Old Town Mall was
DeRay
McKesson, who we had a full episode interview with.
Yeah.
And it was fucking amazing. And I cannot still believe. It's one of those things, again, I don't think about, but then like I went to that. I'm like, we fucking had a full interview with a guy who was running for mayor.
Yeah.
And I mean, he finished third, but he was running for fucking mayor, and he sat down and talked to us, and I got to sit in the room with this guy.
He was a known entity at that point too.
100%, yeah, he was after Ferguson known to everyone. And then we did the Old Town Mall episode, and there's been a couple other ones.
I will say this, not everyone though, because there's a lot of time where like people will say like, so who's the best person or who's the most famous person you've ever had in your podcast? And I'm just like, do you know who DeRay McKesson is? Like, no. I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you then.
On my Tinder profile, back when I had one, I interviewed DeRay McKesson a few years ago, and if you don't know who that is, we're not going to get along. Like, if you don't know that name in this, when I start spouting off other names, it's going to be a problem that you don't know who these people are. For Rocks, we went to the Broad, and we didn't get into the 60s exhibit.
The Broad? The
Broad.
The Broad.
The Broad Museum.
The Broad Museum.
No, it's the Broad. It's the last name of a person. And their last name is Broad.
My whole life's been a lie. Okay.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Henderson
English,
Broad.
Your life has been a lie, and English is your second language. So the Broad Museum, they have the 60s exhibit about like black culture in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Outside, well, we didn't get tickets to get in there, but outside they had these like, it was like, I walked up and I'm like, oh my God, it's like Angela Davis and fucking like Stokely Carmichael and Malcolm X. And I got her to listen, and I got a couple pictures, and I was about to post it with the caption like, when Bay finally gets into the revolution, and then she's like, oh, that was cute. It was fine. I'm like, oh, fuck. I could trace the downfall of everything right at this moment now.
You know, speaking of like the changes of like the policy or the politics of us during the thing too, I do notice that if we went back on a lot of the police shooting episodes, there was a lot more of me going like, well, we don't know exactly what happened. Like,
there was good people on both sides of this shooting. Okay, let's just be honest.
No, and like
it's weird because Trump actually got that from Corey early on the podcast. That was his reaction.
That's one episode he listened to. That's one
of the things that like definitely changed over. And I really do think that Freddie Gray was like the moment that like really like. Well, because that one was, I was locked in with all the information exactly as it was happening.
Yep.
And that's something that like we did the episode on Ferguson and stuff like that, and there were random ones here and there throughout the course of,
I kept trying to bring them up, Eric Garner in New York and
Eric
Scott
Garner,
in California, or in South Carolina.
There was a couple that were like, like, oh, I don't know. I don't know where the line stands on this thing. And then there were other ones where I was just like, no, that's fucked up. Yep. Even if I was more of a police apologist, I guess, at certain points along the way.
Yeah.
I would say like, I was still like, when Eric Garner in New York happened, I was just like, that's really fucked up. Like there's no way this is acceptable in any context.
Yes. Let's step back there. Do you know who the only person to go to jail in that picture was, or in that situation?
The guy who took the video?
The guy who recorded the video was the only guy who went to jail. Let me just get worked up. But no, I do think that has also been a change. I joke about Corey being on the alt-right, but his move to the left has also included a lot less apologizing for some of the things that have happened. Because in 2014, when Ferguson was happening, I know that I think your initial reaction was something along the lines of like, well, I mean, listen, we don't know the full situation. Let's withhold judgment. Well, the guy's going to be, he got tested. He's got a story.
Another thing that I would say, just for people who listen to the podcast and might think that all the opinions that we share are like 100% the opinions that we have. There were a lot of times where you were just like really worked up about it. And I was just like, all right, so I guess I could lean more into the opposite. Yeah. Like, I don't really give a shit, like one way or the other. Like a lot of the times we were talking about like police shootings and stuff like that, I was like, I don't give a shit. I just don't like, I don't have the capacity to think about like, all the things that went into this specific moment. And I'm never going to know enough to feel confident about it. And I don't really want to like, but you're really worked up about it. So I have to be the point to your counterpoint, like. And
I think that reviewing them all, that's one thing I got into as well. Is like I realized I listened to myself arguing stuff, and I'm like, I know I didn't care about that, but then I realized I could hear you defending your position so harshly that I'm like, oh, I gotta lean hard the other way to keep you worked up about it.
Right.
Because otherwise, I mean, that's honestly, so it's something that one of the reasons I don't talk about significant others on the show is because the person I was dating when we started the show, I told her straight flat out, listen, what you hear on the podcast, if you listen, is a blown up version of our personalities.
Yeah.
It's not what you get on the normal day-to-day basis. It is somewhat expanded, and it's a little bit wilder, and it's a little bit bigger. And you just have to be okay with knowing that, like, I might talk about all the bitches I'm seeing on the side. That's podcast Rob. And real Rob is going to say goodnight to Corey and then drive to your house, and we're going to be fine. And there are no bitches on the side. But Corey is going to tell a story about how, I hooked up with 5 different girls in one day, and I need to kind of sound like I'm still that guy, because that's where the funny story comes. This funny comes from me telling a story from 4 years ago as if it happened this weekend, and kind of filling in a dull spot.
Right. So. And we sort of talked about when we started the podcast sort of being like sort of like a court case where we might have to take positions that aren't necessarily our like hard and fast positions, but like it would be like this would be a trial where there isn't decorum.
Yes.
Like where you could just be like, fuck that. And like talk over the other person and there's no objections or anything like that. And it's just sort of like we have to make it interesting, we have to take like opposite points. Because like when there's topics that we both like agree on, it's kind of boring.
They're
to
just
like watch us like just both say like, and Trump's a real fucking idiot.
We got that note about a very early episode where like we wandered into, I want to say it might have been the marijuana episode. We've done a lot of episodes on marijuana as well, which has been a refrain since episode 3. But I think the marijuana episode, we had to get into the legal aspects of it. And the first half was just like, oh, and I don't really care about usage and blah, blah, blah. And then somebody said, I think actively, like, it's really, the first 2 episodes were good. Then you guys started just agreeing for most of the episode. And like, okay, great. Yeah, you guys agree about why would you do an episode about something you completely agree about? Yeah. It's informational as far as that's concerned, but it's not interesting. So
it just kind of reminds me of the one episode. I don't remember exactly which one it was. But the one episode where you were talking about guns. And I remember distinctly because if I remember correctly, I was sitting on the couch listening to the whole thing, and my God, did you guys get worked? Especially Corey got really worked up about that one.
Yeah,
we were talking about guns.
But again, sometimes I can see him getting worked up, and you just lean further away, even if it's outside of what you actually think, because I want him to get worked up and start talking. And for a stretch, it was getting worked up because then he would get into this space where he would start like, I'm not gonna say I don't want to hot take it here, and like he'd start cutting himself off because he doesn't want to say it, and then like you just prod him a little bit. And he's like, well, I'm not saying that. Yes, maybe we do have to take some of their guns away. All right, some of them are crazy. And I'm like, oh really? And he's like, well, listen, I'm not saying it. He's like tries to check himself. Then you are just like poking. Yeah, he just prod a little bit. But so speaking of prodding, I do want to roll through. We're running short on time because we're going to keep this to a tight show here. But I want to run through some of the segments that I found as I reviewed all of the episodes that we've gone through. Yeah, some of these are still going to be familiar to you guys at home right now. Hey guys, everybody who's at home right now, good to see you. Glad you're still with us. I am the sky. So some of them are going to be familiar, some of them are not. So let's just roll through some of these. My favorite, I bumped to the top. These are not in order of appearance because of this. I kind of ordered them somewhat. But my favorite one that I think that Corey needs to bring back to life. Movies Old Enough to Fuck. That was one of my favorites. I just remember the meeting where he pitched this to me, and I was like, I feel like this is going to end badly, but you should run with this. It was movies that are more than 18 years old. So they're movies that are old enough to fuck.
That's kind of what I figured. For a second there, I was kind of concerned about it being like a movie character, like, oh, this child star from this one movie that...
It's Corey's policy on women in general. Bull Durham is a movie that's old enough to fuck. Not because it's more than 18 years old, but because there's grass on the field, so play ball. But, anyway, the tweet that I found today.
Yeah, and the follow-up tweet where it's just like, can you not tweet that and make me look like a pervert?
Oh gosh, don't! I will tweet anything that's said around me. Be very careful. So other ones, stuff we still have. Baltimore Corner.
Yep.
Sports
Where
ball.
you get the straight up.
Oh, I was gonna say that.
Sports ball is still and then some of the things we used to do. The spotlight.
Yeah.
We spent 150
The movie?
episodes doing
No.
150 episodes. We did a follow-up episode on Friday that was a short version, and it was so much work to cut down 90 minutes into a 20-minute review.
Right.
Insane. The Basement of Horrors.
Ooh,
We did
interesting.
3 Halloween episodes called The Basement of Horrors.
Yeah.
Because we used to do the show in the basement, so it's the Basement of Horrors.
Deep
So
below
what
the
was,
earth and
what was that
Parkville.
about?
Oh, it was just a Halloween episode. We would talk about Halloween stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything
Like
special.
legends and
No.
whatever.
Yeah, just Halloween. It was
Oh.
done at Halloween, and we were tricking off of the
Treehouse of Horrors, yeah.
that Simpsons did. We've done now 4 book debuts on the podcast. We did the fitness challenge twice.
The OTA Fitness Challenge, yeah.
It worked out swimmingly, everybody. Yeah.
Wait a minute, I'm still doing it. What's
Just look
going
at these rock hard 6-pack abs over here.
So there was an ongoing.
Rachel's gonna have something to say about that tomorrow.
Becky and Gina.
Oh my god!
To take you back a little bit, we have done Oscars.
That was another one that I laughed at so hard because
Becky and Gina.
Yeah, because I think the first time we ever did Becky and Gina, we were just going back and forth on the voices, and then you went, "Oh my god, sploosh!" And I died. I was like, I didn't. The thing is that usually we can make each other laugh, but I know essentially what's coming out of his mouth because
Yes.
I know where his mind goes, and then I never heard that before, and it just hit me. I was like, what?
So I'm assuming Becky and Gina were female characters that
We
you
just
made.
did. We pretended that we were women,
Yeah.
and we did
Yeah.
characters. It was a really horrible, not sexist, I wouldn't say, but stereotypical. Non-sexist, if you can think of it that way. It was just if a couple of Valley girls were having a conversation.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
should. I think we should bring that back.
I agree
That
100%.
sounds-
It was really good. We did Oscar shows all 5 years of the podcast.
Yep.
So I'm very proud of that. Involving Jim several times. I think 4 of the 5 Jim was on in one way or the other.
Which next year is going to involve me, just so you know.
Sure. We did Drinko de Mayo 4 times.
With the 5th coming.
This will be the 5th Drinko de Mayo coming up on May 5th.
Which is a Mexican I find highly offensive.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's fine. We're going to get blackout drunk from tequila, which is the one time we drink a year.
Yeah.
We listened to a lot of podcasts when we were starting, and one of the things we talked about was, should we drink during the podcast? Because a couple of the ones that I was listening to, I think at the time, were guys who progressively got drunker as it went along, and it kind of got funnier. But I just tend to get and then fall
There
off
was
the cliff.
some podcast, God, it was some Baltimore podcast that they were drunk
Baltimoreans.
the whole time.
The Baltimoreans drank. They weren't drunk the whole time, but they did drink. And
There
you
was
could see,
another.
as the
There
show
was
went
another
along.
one too. I really hated it, but you liked it. And
City That Bleeds?
Yeah.
Or
City That Breeds.
See the Breeds. Yeah,
Yeah.
See the Breeds. Yeah, I actually did like that. I still listen to them sometimes. If the topic's topical. Outer Banks Vacation episode, which we talked about a little bit. Movie commentaries, where we get Jim and we watched Masters of the Universe once and Major League once, and we did movie commentaries to him. Amazing. We should revamp that again.
We were around Oscar time. We were talking to Jim about the potential of doing an Aquaman one.
Yes.
Man.
Just to watch me
Yeah, because we know you
blow
love.
up.
We know Corey loves Aquaman.
For a while, we had a segment called #Do Your Job or Quit, which was stories mainly about people in Baltimore and mainly about politicians, but they did spread out a little bit.
Yeah, it started with SRB.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Old Town Mall and Port Covington episodes, which I think were top of the line. I didn't even remember we did one on Port Covington, but
it was
did.
like an investigative report.
It was.
Essentially,
Yeah.
it was like a special, a 60-minute special episode on Old Town Mall and Port Covington. Essentially,
And in that time, speaking of investigative reporting, we have been nominees for 2 awards: the Best of Baltimore and the Mobbies. Unfortunately, several times nominated. Never winning.
Yeah, it's all right.
But we are award nominated.
We'll win
podcast.
LA Weeklies.
I'm sure we will. I'm sure. I mean, listen, it's the beautiful LA skyline here.
Yeah, I know.
Why wouldn't we? Clearly, we are right here in. Oh wait.
Yeah, clearly.
Certainly not in front
This
of
is
a
a
green
big
screen.
window behind us. That's what it
Yes.
is.
And I just
You might say to yourself at home, how do they afford such an amazing window?
to be fair, like the roof of our building, this is the view. Like we do live in this building, just not this particular view, I suppose. John
That's
Oliver,
a short jaunt away.
John Oliver and net neutrality. The first mention of these two things in a single episode 6. And we've been talking about it since episode 6. Net neutrality, of course, is dead now. But we've seen the entire life of net neutrality. From our first episode was, hey, it looks like Congress is about to start talking about this thing. And it'd be a really bad idea. We should talk about it. Okay, great. Let's do that. Let's explain what it is and continue on. And in the 5 years, they've killed net neutrality. So that's happened.
There is a chance that something may still be coming up.
Maybe. But Congress can always make a law. So
I mean, like, I think that if people decide to make an issue of it in the presidential election, then it'll certainly get brought up again. But I mean, like, right now it's sort of in this middle place. So,
and another thing we constantly talk about, other than the tech news and politics, music has always been a constant refrain. Yes. Mm-hmm. As I said, we were starting a record label at one point, and we brought a lot of musicians on, and we have had discussions about Lil Yachty and Tekashi 6ix9ine.
Yeah, which, by the way, for everybody out there, Corey's about to release his very own rap album.
Oh, is he?
Very soon.
I'm very excited for it.
Yeah,
I'm very excited for it.
He's going to teach all these new generations how it's done.
I still want to do a kind of comedy rap song where, or an album where Corey is the producer of every one of them, so that I can be like, CB5 on the beat. Do you remember the follow up to that? Oh man, it's from like I don't know, maybe 40 episodes ago or so. Well, I said I was going to do that and make you the producer.
You were talking about like some guy who was like, they took something from Jersey Shore, like Ronnie or something like that was in his thing or something.
Yes.
Isn't that what you were talking about?
We were talking about how
I don't
Ronnie
remember anything else about that. It's just like
Ronnie J's producer tag is, oh my God, Ronnie from Jersey Shore.
Yeah.
And I said I was going to put CB5 on the beat, and you'd be like, hello.
Hi.
And we could just throw off as like CB5 on the beat.
Hi.
And then into the song. Yeah. I want to do a whole album where that is just how we intro every song.
12 straight tracks.
just that. And then me doing rapping really poorly for a verse or two. But we love it and we hate it. And one thing, the first mention of a theme song, episode 12. And we still don't have a theme song.
Yeah. That turned out right.
I will say it has worked out. I have had a couple of submissions, so maybe in the future, I'm still hoping for a theme song at some point. We've tried and we failed.
Maybe one of our listeners is
maybe if somebody wants to submit something in the next week, I would really love to hear it. But we've tried and we failed many, many times.
What were you thinking in terms of
See, that's the problem too. It's like we
did you think of it like, were you trying to get like a jingle or just like a beat?
No, we didn't want a jingle. We certainly didn't want to like
Oh, the Anthem Podcast.
I mean, like and this is not to make fun of Section 336 or anything like that, because it definitely works for their show.
Yeah.
But I seem to remember us saying like, I don't want what Section 336 has, because it wouldn't work for like our show.
I haven't listened in so long. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, but I mean, like their thing now is like Section 336, like it's like very jingly.
Yeah, no.
But like it works for them, but it wouldn't work for our show, because like we're immediately going to start talking about like like strippers or something like that. It's just not going to fit with the
not jingly
jingle. And like the problem is that like it's so hard to like figure out like exactly what kind of musical reference would fit in with all the things that we like. There's sort of like an aspect of us that like hip hop would be good, and then there's also like an aspect of us that like rock would be good, and then like I don't know,
EDM could be good. Corey really like EDM, but
I mean, it just seems like there's a lot of things that could work, but none of them worked perfectly, and that's part of the problem too.
I always, every time we've had a competition or we've discussed it, I've told people, just listen to the show a little bit, and then just give me something. Yeah. And really, like, you probably know music better than we do. Just give me something that kind of fits.
Maybe we should just have what's her face, Billie Eilish. We
will absolutely not have Billie Eilish make our.
Well, that was the other problem too. Like at one point, I created a intro video that we were gonna do, and I was like, just as like a reference track, I was just like, I'm just gonna put like AC/DC in here just to see how it like works. And then like I cut the whole video, and I was just like, all right, yeah, this is ready. Now it's time to find the song that's not AC/DC to put in here. And I'm just like, none of these work.
Can't do anything.
Everything is terrible.
Yep.
Like, why did I set myself so high with the AC/DC at the beginning? To like,
And speaking of like the changes of the podcast and all that, we had intros where we had the badass ESPN intros for a while. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
Do we still use those?
no,
I don't think so, right? No, it's just a video, right? It was just running video. So
well, because it used to be up front before,
That's right.
like when you would make the videos. There was for a long time in the podcast there. It was like me doing the recording and like the putting up the episodes and like uploading everything and stuff like that. And I think Rob sort of felt like he wasn't doing enough or something. And he was just like, let me make the videos that go along with what we're talking about. Like, and I'll have little images and we'll do like a slideshow and stuff like that. And you could just put it in, like for a while there, it was the video.
Yeah.
Like it was just the pictures.
we didn't
that would
have
go
live
by.
actual video. So
Yeah. And then once we started doing the live video, we did it as like a thing in the middle with the sidebar on the side.
this is going to look really weird for you guys at home, but I have that. It's good. It would look something like this. Oh, wait. No. Yeah, kind of. Nope, none of these really work.
Yeah.
Two shot two. Oh, no, kind of like this.
Yeah.
Except for that screen in the middle that you see in the middle here was actually up higher.
It kind of bothers me that we have both these cameras going on right now.
But yeah, it was up in the middle.
Best
and,
angles we could find.
Oh, you know what? Go watch some of the early episodes. You'll see it in there, okay? You'll see it in there. But yeah, so we did the video and I did the spotlight, like editing it down, and it was so time intensive.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work.
And there was a lot of me like going like, hey, is that video done yet?
I'm working on it. It's 2:00 in the morning. It's gonna be done. It's gonna be done.
And then Rob would cut the spotlight too.
Yeah.
But I think you were doing that roughly at the same time you were doing like
No. That was a whole
no?
different process. Yeah. Because what I would do is I'd make the video and then I'd edit down that video for
Yeah.
the spotlight.
Right.
So that would be like I wouldn't have to recut a video to it.
And
so.
the spotlight started just because all of our friends were just like, there was a lot of people who said like, because we used to go fucking really long,
Yeah.
way back. We were Joe Rogan long for a
hours.
while there.
Yeah.
And like people were just like, hey, we really like the show. We really enjoy listening to it. It's way too fucking long.
Yeah, I don't have 2 hours to listen to it.
Like
Like
can
I'm
you
in the
just
car.
do like a
so-
half-hour podcast? And I'm just like, half-hour podcast? It would be
what
nothing.
is
Like, how do
that?
we even... We would say hello and then we'd have to sign off. Like,
I have been encouraging other people to do a daily short form podcast.
Yeah.
But anyway.
It's coming.
So the final thing.
Or
the
is it?
Final thing. Final thing I had on the list is we have done a lot of films over the last 5 years. They've all been involved here.
And
We've
we're
debuted them.
making some new ones too.
I'm looking
Coming
forward to
soon.
making some new ones. But
Yeah.
Spiral, Corey's masterpiece. If Corey, if you're listening to the sound of my voice right now, just know that if Corey dies, I want you to look at Spiral and know that that is his masterpiece, and he wants to be known by that for the rest of his life. And
please
after.
no.
His pièce de résistance.
We did the love letter.
That one upset me because we were so excited about that goddamn squib.
I know.
that we got working like
I
perfectly.
know.
Like we did a
Motherfucker.
test shot with it, and like it just literally just looked like something from like Kill Bill with like the way that the blood like sprayed out.
so good.
And I was just like, oh man, this is gonna be fucking intense when this works out. Because like you walk into every film going like, all right, this is gonna be really good. I'm excited about it. Then you look at the footage, and you're just like, what the fuck is that? That's not what I shot.
Yeah, it's kind of how it worked out. But there's some interesting things from it, and we learned lessons.
We got the
and-
best squib take we could get, which was literally just like somebody like spitting up, like it looked like a
Yes.
baby spitting up.
Yes. But we had Spiral. There was a Genesis series where Corey was talking about reposted all the stuff from being in LA. We had
And prior.
Empire, yeah.
Yeah.
The Love Letter. We had the web series Heretics, which you guys should check out on YouTube if you haven't seen it. It's really good. And of course, stuff to come. And where Corey and I were actors, we've talked multiple times about meeting an old friend,
Yeah.
which
The remake's coming.
No, it's a classic. It's a classic, and everybody should check it out on YouTube.
Well, we should follow the Hollywood trend and just have a remake. Just redo it again.
I mean, I'm too old to be remaking that particular character. I don't know if Corey can make the laugh that's necessary.
I'm sure I could. I'm sure I could
reach down and find it.
Reach down somewhere deep inside of me and find it.
But it's we've said all of these things. We've talked about all these things just to. Honestly, I just wanted to go back, and there's so much. You cannot cover it in an hour and 10 minutes now. You can't cover it in an hour and 10 minutes. It's been a wild ride for 5 years. And what show can say that they have done new topical content 260 consecutive weeks in a row? Not even Rogan does that.
Yeah.
Rogan bulk records all his stuff. Carolla does a lot of live recording, but
he does best ofs too.
Yes. Never have you seen a best of from us, except for 1 year where we did one for New Year's, but it was a bonus episode, not the full episode for the week.
Right.
New content every single week for 5 years. That is
congrats.
It's something to be proud of, and I am very proud of it. And
honestly, I seem to remember going back all the way to the beginning, like me saying to you, like, we really have to be serious about wanting to do a new episode every single week, because if we give up a week early on and say like it's too busy and we can't figure out the time to do it, then we're A, going to do it all the time.
Yep.
And B, we're just going to give up at some point because we haven't like been pot committed. And I think having like a 260 week streak is like part of what like makes this happen every week, you know, because it's like you don't want to break the streak. It's like time hop.
Yep. And we are continuing on into year number 6 now. Vacations haven't mattered. Relocations haven't mattered. Deaths in the family. New girls, old girls, many girls, friends,
Mexican kids.
Friends have come and gone, but here we are still 260 episodes later at 1:41 in the morning.
Yep.
So
I only have to be up in 4 hours.
Yeah, I will say that I am looking forward that 5 years from now in 2024, we'll be able to do something much bigger and brighter, and hopefully later.
I mean,
later
wait, 2024?
Yeah, that would be 10 years. 10 years of the podcast.
Oh,
2024.
I really just hope at some point we like have we finally live up to the lofty expectations we've set of ourselves.
Yes.
And it's just like, you know, it'd be like the version of just like, do you know that Aaron Sorkin and Chris Nolan have a podcast that they've been doing for the last 7 years? And it's just like, what? Really?
Yeah. What do they talk about?
From before they were famous?
Don't go to any of the early episodes. Right when they start to get famous is where it starts to get good. There's a lot of editing now in the old episodes. I don't know why.
Episode 4 is like 2 minutes long.
I don't understand it.
They just said hello and then goodbye, and that was it.
It's very weird. But every week a new episode. It's very strange. But yeah, so there's going to be some changes coming for you guys. All good in the next few weeks. So look forward to that. Thank you to those of you who have stuck around. One thing we didn't even mention, there was a network of shows for a while there. We had one show, and then we had 2 shows, and then we went down to one show again, and now we have just us again. But
we had 3 shows.
We had 3 shows at one point.
Yeah.
That was insane. It was our show.
And then another like 2 that were like being considered, or like another 2 or 3 like
sitting down and doing practice episodes. Yeah. That's where we were. And one of those groups was bulk recording, and they just never put them out. But and
I think that we said on every single one of every single time somebody was interested in doing a podcast with us, we were just like, just do it every single week. Like, don't let yourself like give the excuse of I can't do it.
Yeah.
Because then you're never going to do it. And a lot of them just like, that was the fatal flaw, is like they were just like, I can't do it this week. And then
it reminds me, I was doing 2 podcasts a week at one point, and editing and making the spotlight for this one and recording this one and then doing a second one all at the same time. Whew. Yeah. So don't say you don't have time. You guys can do it. But yeah, no.
On top of his lawyering, that was happening.
That The Anthem Alliance, though, we had a fan show. That was the show about this show, which I actually enjoyed a lot of. I enjoyed listening to it. I enjoyed having a back and forth with the host of that show. And I mean, not a bad time to say if anybody has any ideas and they'd like to get we have an ongoing list right now in notes of podcast ideas.
Yeah.
So I'm always down for somebody to come in and participate. Just get in touch with us. And my bigger point. Thank you guys who've been playing along with us for 5 years now, who've come by week after week. And sometimes I'm sure you missed a week here and there. Sometimes you might have missed stretches. It's fun. I just talked to Ann. Yeah. Super fan Ann for the first time in a long time. And she was like, there was like a year there where I wasn't listening to any podcast. It was all music. And then I went back to my podcast app and I realized, hey, I have 70 unlistened to O The Anthem episodes because you guys post every goddamn week. And I'm like, yeah, we post every week. So she's now getting back in. So Ann, if you're listening, thank you for coming back. And thank you for all of you who have been here throughout the years.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Part of what makes this such a joy to do is like hearing people talk about it. And that's something that really touches me. And Rob has a cold, callous heart, and it doesn't touch him at all.
Well, I would say I joke about shouting into the abyss, but someday when all of this is all gone, at least these episodes will survive, and we'll know that Corey didn't really care so much about grabbing her by the pussy, so that will exist forever.
Well, if you want to see what the first 5 years of the podcast really looked like, you know where you can go? Hint.
Where's that?
OTheAnthem.com. Corey at OTheAnthem.com. O The Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the listener line 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
443-219-7595.
You know what this reminds me of, by the way?
What?
MySpace!
You can find more of me at my website, CoreyBakerFilmmaker.com. At Corey Baker Film on Facebook and at Legends5 on Twitter and Instagram. I'm not going to be able to see a movie this week no matter how hard I try because I just do not have the time. You never know.
You might have some time to kill in Vegas.
Maybe. If anything, I'll probably do a video about like cool things that I saw at NAB. So maybe that would definitely not be available on Thursday. But at some point, I might be. I'm just thinking ahead. I'm just like, I'm not going to fucking even be back in LA until probably Friday. So I'm just like, I wouldn't even have time to like make and edit a video while I'm in Vegas. So
he's going to have to listen. If he's got extra time, it's going to be spent at a bar, not shooting a video in his hotel room.
It's gonna be spent writing. I'm really looking forward to like taking some Tarantino time and just like writing until like 3:30 in the morning and then going down and doing Vegas-y things.
By the way, August, we are 100% doing a long weekend where the girls can have a party weekend for their birthdays, and we are going to get a separate room and we are going to turn the lights down and clickety-clack, and keep our own schedule for 3 consecutive days, which includes like going to get food at 4:30 in the morning and then not sleeping for 3 days. Mm-hmm. Lots of cocaine. I mean, coffee. Yes. Roberto, where can people find you?
Oh, they can find me on my social media networks, Instagram, RTOAZN. Yeah, I can't even remember my own thing. RTOAZN on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me on Facebook, RTO Arrizon.
And to his credit, he has been posting a lot more recently.
Yeah. Recently, yes.
After being guilted by us for some time about doing
Pretty much. Plus, we have some stuff cooking, some stuff in the works. So we'll definitely need to
build that following. Yeah.
Yep.
And of course, you can find me on our social networks at Robert N. Cheek, as it says right there. You know what I found out this week?
Book publishing is hard?
That I did find out. RobertNCheek.com is pushing back a 404. I don't know why, so we're going to have to fix that. So don't check out RobertNCheek.com, but you can find more of me all over the place, including my author page on Amazon.com, where you can find all of my books, which are available.
Buy those books.
Thank you. What?
I said in Spanish. For all the Hispanic listeners. By the way, is there a Spanish translation for your book already?
No. There's a lot of words that are used in there that would not translate very easily.
We're going to have to work on that.
But yes, we found out that publishing is hard, but I know that all of you are saying, oh, here's Rob with his excuse, blah, blah, blah. No, it's done. Yeah. It's completed.
The things that we have to share with you. Oh, next week is going to be fun.
Many things.
Next week is going to be fun.
We did not want to ruin the 5-year experience by talking about another book, but things are done. Things are moving. We're moving off in a new direction, but thank you. So don't check out RobertandCheek.com right now. Robert and Cheek, all your social networks.
Do it in a couple weeks.
We'll figure out what's wrong with it. But anyway, yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've done good here today.
We've done something. I don't know if it's good.
That's the idea of like we've done something.
We're not sure if it. See, what's crazy though is we're in control of this. Like, why would we choose to do
something
this?
so stupid?
Because I like this. This is amazing. It's like the God cam.
You know, I still think that it would have been funny if we just had it laying down on the side on the floor, like we had it and it fell. We're still going to the camera.
I'm still going to the camera. Let's check out everybody's shoes down here. Oh, Corey needs a pedicure. That's rough. All right.
Just shifting. One of those you're just like scratching your when you take your shoe off and you're just scratching.
If I see some hand movement, I'm definitely going to the other camera. Here we go. High angle. A lot of visual gags. You guys are going to have to check out the video at facebook.com/O The Anthem or at youtube.com/O The Anthem. So, yes. Anyway.
All right. Well, I think we've done good here today.
For the 260th consecutive time, we've done something. I don't know if it's good. But as always, you're listening to the O The Anthem podcast, part of the O The Anthem digital network. For Corey and Roberto, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody.
Now to sleep with everybody. Let's all go to sleep.
Wait, you're trying to sleep with everybody?
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
I'm trying to sleep with everybody. Listen, I'm going back to my bed. I don't need to be sharing beds with anybody.
I mean,
CB5 on the track. Hi!